Are you a team cat person or are you a team dog person? This is a serious question because apparently, depending on what you choose, depends on relationship status and characteristics of who you are. Welcome to Carla Turned On, where dating and relationships get real, sex gets talked about, and the BS gets left on red. Let's get turned on. I know this is absolutely crazy, but they say if you're a dog person, you tend to be more disciplined, social. If you are a cat person, you tend to be more introverted, independent, and open to new experiences. Okay, I am just going to say this right now. Yes, if you are a dog person or you are a cat person, doesn't matter which one, you guys can actually date each other successfully and be in a happy relationship. I know a lot of people, there's some controversy. I've actually coached clients who are like, if they have a cat, I can't do it. I'm allergic to cats. That's valid. If you're like, well, somebody has a dog and my ex had a dog and all they cared about was the dog and I just, and I don't want somebody with a dog. Honestly, everybody has a different relationship with their fur babies. And I think I'm going to say this, and this is going to piss some people off. Okay. So just bear with me for a moment. I think when you start prioritizing your animal over the human being that you are dating, there needs to be some boundaries in play here that have to be discussed and looked at. It's not healthy. I know. I know. If you're like, well, Carla, I rather spend time with my cat or my dog than the person that I'm dating. Priority, precedent. They were here first. They're not going away. They love me unconditionally. I get that. But your cat or your dog is not a human being or reptile. Do we have any reptile fans in the fucking house? I am not a reptile fan. I bet you could guess what I am. Actually, I bet you couldn't guess what I am. And you know what? If you have been listening to Carla Turned On, then at this point, I've already said what I was. Do you know? Do you know what I am? Okay. If you're just like, get it over with, what are you? I'm a cat person. I'm a cat person. But you know what's ridiculous is the characteristics I just listed out on if you're a dog person, you're more this. If you're a cat person, you're more this. I am extremely extroverted. Okay. All right. I do like new experiences though, but I also don't need a lot of independence. However, they do say that cat people score higher in terms of intelligence. I'll take that. Why not? You know? But I'm going to just be honest right now. It's a big debate. A lot of people feel one way or the other. I actually once went on a date with a guy, he ended up being my boyfriend for a little bit, who brought his dog on the date. It was a hiking date, so it made sense. But there was a lot of dependency with that dog and his relationship. And the dog was so sweet. Okay. Also, when I say that I'm not a dog person, I'm going to be real with you. I like dogs. It's not that I don't not like dogs. I just love cats. They're just so cute. They're just so cute and cuddly. They, want cuddles until they're like F off and they can poop and pee on their own in the litter box. It's great. Yes, you have to take out the litter box, but then you have to take your animal that's a dog on walks daily. That's a lot of work. And yes, I walk daily. Okay. All right. We're getting way too into this. Let's just get into exactly what we're going to talk about today because it is so good. In the turned off rant, I'm going to be diving into exactly why you do not need to follow set rules when it comes to dating or relationships. So screw the rules because a lot of times when people start following these rules, they're no longer aligned with actually what their needs are. Okay. I'm going to hold on just a second because we're going to get into that in just a moment here. And then I'm going to dive way into, I'm actually really freaking excited for this, all the stages of relationships. And then we're going to also talk about which stage people tend to break up in and how do you move past that stage so that you can make sure you're in that committed relationship. I actually think this is so important if you're single or if you're dating because let's be freaking real here. If you can understand the stages from the beginning all the way to the end, then it actually might make relationships a lot easier when conflict arises or when you're starting to not feel as excited about them sexually anymore. We're going to talk about that also. And then, of course, we're going to taco about it, talking about coming in orgasms. Yes, yes, yes. And what exactly leads to a sexless relationship. I feel like that's a lot of people's fears. I was in a client call the other day and he was like, I don't want to be in this like sexless relationship. And it's not the first time I've heard somebody say those exact words. So we're going to talk about exactly why it goes from hot and heavy to then all of a sudden it can go to sexless. And this is not everybody, but this is what you need to know to prevent it for yourself and your future. But first, let's get turned the F off right now. Okay? There's this idea that you need to follow these dating rules. I don't believe in dating rules. And you might be like, well, Carla, then why do you tell us that it's okay to date multiple people at once? Why do you tell us that you shouldn't necessarily have a first date longer than 2 hours max or a marathon date? Okay, I get it. You might be like, those are dating rules. They're actually not rules. It's suggestion. It's rooted in healthy attachment. It's all rooted in psychology of when you grow trust, when you grow intimacy, when you get to know somebody in a secure way and create that healthy attachment. And then, of course, you might also be like, well, I'm in a relationship. And Carla, I have heard you say you each need your own hobbies. You guys need your own boundaries. Yes, because that is healthy. These aren't rules. Rules I look at as being almost these like strict, no budge. This is how it's done, no matter your needs. And that's what you have to stick to. Everything that I always tell you are suggestions, but I do like to at least have some backing here in psychology around healthy attachment and getting to know somebody. But it turns me off so badly when people are like, no, you need to do this on a date. Otherwise, that person's going to leave you. I was actually just on an Ask Me Anything client call where he and I were meeting for the first time. So I've never met him before. And toward the end of the session, he started to tell me, Carla, I get this crazy stuff all about these dating rules, dating rules, this, and it just feels so negative and it makes me feel really confused. Yeah, of course it's going to fucking make you feel confused because here you have somebody telling you that you should be dating this way or you should be dating that way. And it doesn't align with who you are, your values, what you need, what you don't need from somebody. And that can lead you to feeling super lost in dating, super lost in relationships. And then all of a sudden, you're no longer actually aligned to what is best for you. And that is the most important thing at the end of the day. You have to remember that in order to create a healthy attachment to a human person, not a dog and not a cat. Well, actually, no, not a dog and not a cat. Absolutely a human. Because if you're trying to form a healthy attachment to a dog or a cat, look, a dog and a cat rely on you. It really is sort of this relationship where you're the caretaker. That is not how you want to go in and enter a relationship that is going to be healthy. I'm just going to say that right now. But when you are attaching, it takes time to get to know somebody, and it takes consistency in terms of your behavior, in terms of the reliability of if you text the person back or not, and how you're texting that person back, even the communication, the language, checking in, seeing how things are going. When you get into this idea of rules, and I swear some people just want you to stay single, they want you to ruin that relationship that you're in. But when you get in this mindset of the rules, you no longer are catering to what is best for you as a human being and a person who has needs. And especially if you're somebody who is always prioritizing everybody else, actually voicing your needs can feel uncomfortable. And a muscle that you probably don't practice much, but that I actually have my clients go from people pleasing AF to super needy to themselves, needs within themselves, needy. Okay, they're not needy people. They figure out their needs within. And then they can express that in relationships because that's what's healthy. That is how you date in a healthy way. But all this rule talk of you can't date this way or you have to date this way or be in a relationship and this is how it is. If you aren't, I don't know, a stupid rule around dating, if you're not official by a certain amount of time, oh my gosh, that's awful. It's, oh my gosh, that's awful if you've expressed your needs and this person is just playing you or they're very unclear and they're avoidant in their attachment style, which we're not going to hate on people with avoidant attachment styles, but they're not clear and they're not attaching to you in a healthy, secure way. Then yeah, at that point, okay, you need to kind of figure out what do you need for yourself, but it's not necessarily about the rules. It's once again, self-focused about you. And I'm going to be honest, not everybody fits societal social norms. If we look at relationships that progress, right? We're looking at the dating stages. Okay, no rules. Got it. But then when you're in a relationship of how things should be done. Okay, I'm going to use a perfect example of my husband and I. When we were going to get engaged, I'm going to tell you a little inside story on us right now. Hey, real quick, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want dating support, don't forget to look in the notes below where you can learn all about my guides and how to work with me. And if you want to follow me on my socials, you can find me anywhere at I am Carla Romo. Let's get turned on. When we were going to get engaged, we actually had an entire conversation about when we want to do it, that we would both propose to each other because for both of us, it was meaningful that we were entering and asking, hey, this is a new step and a new phase and chapter in our lives. We both want to be equal participants in this. We both want to be able to say, hey, like, will you marry me? Yeah. Will you marry me? Yeah. Okay. We're agreeing on this together. We're going into this as a team and as a true partnership. Now, I am not saying that if you if you get engaged, that if one person asks, typically it's the guy, if the guy asks you, "Oh, will you marry me?" and then you say yes, then all of a sudden you're not in this equal partnership. I am not saying that at all. It's just what is best for us in our relationship and the way that we value each other, our core values, our beliefs, the way that we structured our relationship, it went against societal norms. When I told my I told my one of my best friends, I called her when we got engaged and I was like, "We got engaged." And she was like, "Ah, I'm so happy for you." And I was like, "We actually both proposed." And she was like, "Oh my God, that's so gay of you guys." She is in a relationship with a woman. So this is why she's saying this. And she was like dying laughing. She thought it was so funny. But the truth is that there's no right or wrong on how you want to do things. The core of us in our relationship at the time was that we wanted to enter into this phase together, that we didn't want any big surprises, and that this was going to be something really meaningful to both of us. So we didn't even tell our friends that we were doing this. Actually, instead, of course, friends ask and we all chat about, are you getting engaged? Are you not getting engaged? And I would just say, yes, we have a plan, but we're not sharing it with anybody right now. It is definitely something that is going to happen. Very excited about it, but we're not talking about it with anyone. We did, however, tell our family because we knew that we just wanted a family wedding. And I can talk more about that on another Carla Turned On. But we told our family initially, we're getting engaged in the near future. Here's the date of when we want to get married. We did things backwards. We just did. And it worked for us. And honestly, I loved it. I love that we got to create and reinvent societal norms for what was best for us. And I actually think that if we look at something as being rules and having to abide or follow these, you actually take away the crux of your needs in a relationship or your needs when it's time to start dating. All of those things are so important. And if you just went with what society said, then maybe for yourself, you'd be missing out on something that is really key to you, but you didn't stop to say, like, what do I need? Or what does this look like for me? Or what does this look like for us? And have that conversation. So at the end of the fucking day, make your own goddamn rules. Okay, now let's go on to those phases and stages of a relationship because this is really key. I'm going to say something super controversial right here. Agree to disagree, totally fine. But most relationships don't just fail because somebody actually picked the wrong person. Yes, that is possible, and I'm not denying that. However, nobody ever explained the stages of relationships and how that can actually make you feel like you picked the wrong person when they're actually the right person. I know. This might seem a little weird and a little like, not so sure about that. So we're going to dive into this like right now. Right? Meow. Okay, I'm going to stop. Okay, stage number 1 when it comes to relationships. This is that attraction infatuation stage. This usually lasts from the very beginning to about 6 months. This is where you're so excited. The dopamine hits. You can't stop thinking about this person. And no, it doesn't necessarily mean unhealthy sparks like I've talked about before on Carla Turned On. I am talking about that excitement, the giddiness, the nerves, the butterflies. Everything is new. This person is so magical. You've never met somebody more amazing in your life than this person. And they are just the best. They are amazing. And maybe you're like, Carla, I don't know if I felt that. You had some kind of connection because this is actually what helps bond you together in the early stages of dating. So yes, it might not be as exaggerated as I just said, or maybe it is exaggerated and more and then some. But this is why I actually always tell clients, do not make any fast movements in the first 6 months of dating. This doesn't mean you can't progress and talk about future things. However, making a really big decision, like deciding that we're going to just move in together, or making a big decision that we're going to get engaged, or making a big decision that you're just like, screw the engagement, we're getting married right now, and this is what's happening. The reason that you do not want to necessarily do this, and like I said, there's no rules. There's no rules. This is all just rooted in psychology and how we attach to people and our psychological processes during relationships, stages, and phases. But you want to be able to take your time because you might be making a decision based off of feelings versus true compatibility. Number two is the reality check or the differentiation. And this usually hits 3 to 12 months into the relationship. Don't panic. It's okay. But all of a sudden, you start to see this person for who they are. You realize that they actually aren't so perfect. And then maybe you start to go, oh no, did I choose the wrong person? Should I break up with them? No, not necessarily. Now, you might really recognize some fundamental differences, and the dopamine hit in the first stage was so good and so great and masked the deeper rooted issues that were really going on this whole time that you didn't see. Sure, that absolutely could have happened, but this is where conflict shows up. Now, I am going to tell you this right now. Any relationship that says they don't fight or they don't argue or they don't have any kind of conflict is an unhealthy relationship. Yes, it is. The idea isn't to not actually have conflict. The idea is about how do you repair the conflict. And this 100% is the stage where most people break up. The majority of people break up in this stage. Now, I am not saying that if you've been in a 3-year relationship and then you broke up with them and you weren't in this stage, you're out of the majority, blah, 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 all this stuff. No, people break up all the time in different stages. But the idea is here that the majority of people, if they're going to break up, this is usually in this stage. Now, I'm not saying hold your breath, you made it through a year, you're out of this. And the idea of the whole timeline here is it can fluctuate, right? This is why I give you a range of dates, a range of months, weeks, that kind of thing, because ultimately at the end of the day, there's different variables for every relationship that is out there that might differ in terms of what I'm saying and your experience. But nonetheless, your relationship will go through these stages. This is also why that whole crash and burn happens because everything moves so quickly. It feels so good. You are riding hard off those dopamine hits. And then, boom, there's nothing to kind of hold it in place because you didn't build the blocks around safety, security, slow and steady, all of those things to be able to build into a relationship once you get to stage 2. So then when the conflict arises or something happens, somebody pulls away, they get scared, or they wonder, is this person right for me? Did I make a mistake? Did I do something that just, I don't know here. This also might be why you experience those 3 to 4 month relationships and then boom, it's over, it's done. And you're like, why does this keep happening? What's going on? There's a lot of if you keep attracting a certain type of partner who walks away during this time, something definitely to look at within your relationship patterns. However, this also might explain you're not crazy, you're not cursed, but it is common and it happens to break up or break things off around this time. I work with clients who go from single, right? They go from single and then I work with them trying to meet somebody and then they meet somebody and then they're in a relationship. I've had lots of clients though stick it through and say, Carla, can I keep working with you? Because otherwise, if I don't, I'm worried that, something's going to happen or I won't have the support of you to kind of help check it and keep it going. I'm going to tell you a story that happened to my client. When we were meeting together, he was in this relationship with somebody who everything was good, checked out perfectly fine in the beginning, green flags. And as he was getting to know her, he realized, oh, there's some differences here. I don't know. He started getting iffy. And yes, you could be like, is that somebody's attachment style? Is it past wounds from past relationships? Is it a pattern? He just keeps attracting people like this. Is he, psychologically trying to date his parent and fix something? Okay, you could go into all those possibilities out there. But what actually came to be is that he was wondering, I went from thinking this person was so great, but maybe they're not. Maybe there is some stuff that's going on. Maybe I looked wrong again. I haven't been in the best relationships in the past. So now I'm starting to second guess myself. Did I make a mistake? All right. So I fully explored this with him. Was it attachment stuff coming up? Nope. Was it childhood stuff that needed to be addressed? Nope. Was it that he picked somebody who has terrible values? Nope. He was in this stage where all of a sudden he noticed that her relationship with her family was different than the relationship he had with his family. And he started to think that maybe that was a problem. Maybe this isn't going to work out because we don't see eye to eye with family relationships. And actually, instead of being like, peace out, bye, you're right, get out of this, I encouraged him to have a conversation with her and actually multiple conversations to work through this of what it looked like to spend time with each of their families. And through the work of doing this, they were able to work through it and stay together and push past into stage number 3, which in stage number 3, you see a lot of power struggle and attachment activation. This typically kicks in around 6 months to 2 years in that time frame. Like I said, everybody's time frame is going to be slightly different. I know you're like, wait, but these are overlapping. Hold on. What does that mean? Think about it as more fluid versus being so rigid, right? We don't do rules here. Remember that? We don't do rules. So here is a perfect example. I am going to talk about a client. I'm going to tell a story here who has anxious attachment style. And this client, she works on her anxious attachment style, right? But it gets activated in her relationships. So she and her partner got into a really big disagreement. They were trying to figure out where they were going to go on vacation and they were going to take a really big trip together. And it was sort of this big, they'd taken some small trips, but this was going to be a really big trip that they were going to take together. And they had to talk about the financial side of things. How much, did they want to spend? Who was going to cover what? How they were going to go about this? And ultimately, they had a disagreement about how much to spend and how to go about booking different hotel rooms. And at that point, she was like, screw it. I just feel like I should just pay for him. I just want to pay for him at this point. Like, he doesn't want to stay in the nicer hotels. I do because we're traveling to a different country. And I just want to make sure I feel comfortable in them. I don't know the country. I don't know my surroundings. I don't mind staying in lesser hotels, but I just don't know the area. So I just feel more comfortable with paying this amount just for the peace of mind. He absolutely did not want to. Okay. You can see right here how there was a power struggle. Somebody wanted to spend the money, somebody didn't. They had a different idea. So then all of a sudden she's like, well, maybe I will just pay. And I asked her, okay, absolutely, that can be an option, but where is this motive coming from? And when we got deeper into why, she said, I'm afraid he's going to leave me. I'm afraid if I say no, like I want to stay in these, and can we please split and the cost and figure this out together, that he's going to end up leaving. Because she has anxious attachment style. She's in a secure relationship, but when the conflict in the very early stages that she hadn't experienced conflict before starts to arise, she panics. Oh gosh. Oh no. This is it. This is the end. Oh no, it's going to be over. Ah. And in her past relationships, she dated avoidance. Who would do that? And like I said, we're not hating on the avoidance, but the avoidance, if you're an avoidant attachment, you keep that arm's length distance. You are like, I am getting away. I want my independence, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And then if it becomes too much, boom, you're out, right? However, in this stage that she was in with her relationship dynamic, she was recognizing my anxious attachment is being activated. That is the motive of wanting to pay for these because I don't want him to leave me. And I also want to go on this trip and I don't want everything to get ruined. And oh my gosh, this is it. So I feel like I just need to pay for everything. Okay, so we said, all right, let's look at this from a secure lens. Yes, an option in a secure lens is absolutely, she could pay for the trip. That is totally fine. She's going to pay for the trip. It's important to her. She recognizes the difference. No worries, all good. But it's about the motives of why we do certain things. So she went and talked to him about it because that's the option that we discussed is let's go, why don't you guys talk about this conflict, sort it out together. So they were talking about it. And in conversation, he said, I felt like you weren't listening to me and you started shutting me out. Sound familiar? Anybody here? And in that conversation, he said, it wasn't even about you paying or you doing this nice gesture, which, yes, it's nice, but it didn't feel nice because my interpretation of it is that I didn't have a voice and I didn't have a say. And you were just trying to shut me down and say, I'm just going to pay for the hotel. It doesn't matter. It's fine. And then in turn, she was able to express that she was worried that he was going to leave. that he would want the trip to be over if she didn't pay for the hotels and solve this problem. She's also conflict avoidant, so she just didn't want any conflict at all. And once they actually were able to discuss this and talk about it, how he felt that he was being shut out and that he was being silenced and he wasn't being heard, she felt like maybe he was going to leave her. So she needed to do whatever she had to do to be able to fix the situation so that he wouldn't leave and he'd go on the trip and it would all be okay. So at the end of the day, it wasn't actually about the hotel. It was about the breakdown in their style of communication. It was about the breakdown of her attachment style getting triggered, the abandonment coming out. And then for him, the power struggle around feeling that he was being shut down. He wasn't going to budge. This is what he wants. And so as a result of all of this coming, right? They actually decided, let's just pick a hotel that looks good together. Let's not worry about the ratings. Let's not worry about the price. Let's just sit together and figure out what are our goals for this trip? What type of vibe, what type of hotel do we want to be in? And that is how you work through conflict in a healthy way that's constructive. It is normal to have conflicts, but it is also important to recognize and work through any attachment or power struggles that are coming up in this stage. Then we have the fourth stage, which is stabilization and secure bonding. And this can be years after working through that third stage, working through the activations of your attachment styles, working through the triggers, working through any past wounds that are coming up for you guys, and being able to have this sort of understanding that when we see conflict, we don't see it as relationship over. It's going to end. This is it. What we actually see it as is, oh, okay, I see. We have conflict. Ugh, frustrating. I'm a little annoyed. Give me a second. I just need some time. Okay, ready to talk about it. What's going on? It's not relationships over, game over. This is it. It's not going to work out anymore. And yes, this is where trust runs deep. And this is why it's so important to resolve conflict in a healthy way in the earlier stages, because it's how you build the stability when it comes to attaching in a secure relationship. Because if you don't get to this stage and you stay in stage number 3, that is also where people end things. It's either repeating patterns, which is why maybe you've experienced in the past, or maybe this is something to think about if you haven't been in a long-term relationship. But when something keeps getting brought up over and over and over again, and you're like, why is this a problem? Why does this keep coming up? Why does it? Because there's something deeper going on. It's never about the dishes. It's never about the hotel room. It's never about the family matters. It's always, 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 always deeper beyond just those. And yes, of course, those are things that need to get sorted and solved. But if you only focus on the surface, you're never going to get deeper into moving through to get to that stage of stability and security. This also is where you feel chosen even on the hard days. So yeah, you guys aren't getting along, but you know your partner loves you. You know you love your partner. You're not going to leave. You're not even thinking about it. You might be annoyed at me like, ugh, why did I choose to be with this person? Just for a split second, that's normal. You're allowed to have thoughts, but it's different to act them out. It's different to verbalize those thoughts towards your partner. That would be a whole different thing. And that is not what we're talking about here. But in this stage, you have the stability. You know everything's good. You're going to work through that stuff. And then you have number 5, which is the commitment. And this is the long-term goals here, the end game with that person, because you are in true partnership, right? And at this stage, and this is ongoing. This doesn't ever end. And I want to be very clear with the stages. Sometimes you can move through different stages at different times. That's also normal. It's not always linear, so it can be very fluid. But this is the stage where you are committed. Desire is intentional. You're protecting the relationship. Think about the relationship as like being in a bubble. You don't want anyone popping that bubble. You're not popping that bubble. You guys are in it together. That is this stage. It is ongoing. And you look at it from a relational standpoint that you guys are both in it together. You are a unit that is secure and you guys grow through everything together. So yes, long-term love is practice. It's not boring AF. And at the end of the day, if you're like, oh, this makes perfect sense why we broke up, or oh, this makes perfect sense of why we got to this stage, and then all of a sudden I felt like so upset because my avoidant attachment was coming out and then they started chasing and they got activated. Yes. So you're not crazy. You're just going through the stages of relationships. But with those stages brings on sex and how sex evolves and how some people go from hot and heavy to just completely sexless. Let's talk about it. Look, I'm going to be straight up with you. If your relationship went from, we can't keep our hands off of each other. This is amazing. It's hot. This is all I think about. Sexting, texting, all the stuff. Oh my gosh. Now you're like, we're sexless. It's not happening. I can't even get into it. I don't even want to. It feels like a chore. It's exhausting. You're not broken. Take a deep breath, my friend. And we are going to work through how you got here or how to prevent getting here in a relationship. Number one, I'm just going to be straight up with you. We are sold this illusion of love. I mean, if you look at all the movies, rom coms, non rom coms, horror movies, I mean, all that stuff, it will act like love is just the epicenter. And then you have this amazing sex, and the woman always climaxes, which is not true. And we talk about that in Carla Turned On episode of how it's hard to have an orgasm, and the other episodes, if you want to catch it there, because it's important and everybody should know about that. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, sex should just be this amazing thing. And you should just know how to do it, which is also why I created No Filter, the sex guide every dater needs, because let's be real, when you are trying to communicate in the early stages of dating sex, it is so important to do it in a way that is authentic, aligned, and healthy. Because a lot of people skip that step and you're just running off of those endorphins. Like we talked about earlier with the stages of relationships that you're in. When you are in that number one stage, right? And the dopamine hits and you're having sex and you're like, this is just so great. And then you move to that second stage, all of a sudden you might be like, the sex has changed. Something's shifted. Now I'm feeling annoyed with them. Maybe the sex was just good and that's all it was. And I don't know. Am I right? Right? Of course, desire is going to change. You're a human being. And as a human being, we have sex for pleasure. And those are going to shift. That is completely normal. So, of course, chemistry is going to fade naturally. And it is important to communicate what those needs are for yourself. But here is actually what kills sex. So, yes, you went from this is amazing, this is great, best sex I've ever had. You tell all your friends. If you're a dude, you're probably not telling all your friends. But if you're a woman, you're probably telling all your friends, oh my gosh, this is great. This is so good. At least this is what my girlfriends and I talk about. And then all of a sudden, maybe something shifts and you're like, is it still good? I don't know. Oh my God, I don't know what's happening here. That's normal. And I hear it from my clients all the time. But I also have heard it from girlfriends too. This is what's killing sex is getting a resentment around the person that you are with. If you're resentful towards somebody, you're not going to want to have sex with them. I have had clients feel resentful toward the person that they are with, that they are in a relationship with. And as a result, they're like, our sex has just gone downhill. Like it is just not what it used to be. And of course, it's not going to be what it used to be. It's shifting. And it's important to find connection still when you're feeling this. Because if you are feeling resentful, you are pushing that partner away. You created an expectation. I always say resentments are expectations waiting to happen. I didn't coin that, but it's a good saying. And yes, I'll say it one more time. Expectations are resentments waiting to happen. When you create an expectation of your partner to be a certain way or act a certain way in the relationship or do something for you or whatever it might be, and they're not fulfilling that, and then you get resentful, you are like, nope, I am just pushing that person away. They're bothering me. I can't stand them. And of course, you're not going to want to sleep with somebody in that stage. Another one is sex turning into sort of this peacekeeping tool. It might start to feel like a chore. You feel like you have to have sex because that's what you're supposed to do. So then it no longer feels enjoyable. You sort of feel like, oh, well, we should be. You're shooting on yourself. You're shooting on your sex life. And then you're like, I don't know about this. Like, this is just not, it's now becoming exhausting. I'm tired, but fine, I'll just have sex to have sex. And then the next thing you know, you're not feeling connected, but then it starts to become a pattern. And yes, that is going to lead to not wanting to have sex with somebody. Another really big one is stress and anxiety and mental health in relationships. So you might just be like, you know what? Everything was great and fun in the dopamine hit stages. And now life's taken a toll and things happen because life is always evolving and ever changing. And then you're like, oh, I guess I don't know about this sex. Like, I guess it can wait. Or I'm just so stressed, I can't even get it up. Or I'm so stressed, I can't even get turned on anymore. And then you just feel like I'm just going to push it off instead of addressing the mental health stuff that's going on or the stress that's coming up for you or making space in your schedule to feel less stressed or anxious. That's also going to push you away from wanting to have sex. And then I'm going to be completely honest with you. Most people then avoid having the conversation or shut down. Somebody might bring it up, they're vulnerable about it, and the other person's like, it's just let's not talk about this right now, or it's fine, or I don't know. It's annoying. And then nothing gets resolved. Nothing gets resolved. Somebody was vulnerable. Then they got shut down because the other person shut out and didn't want to face it and didn't want to talk about it. So now we have two people here who just aren't communicating properly at all. And now it is just sexless. It's sexless. And sexless does not have to mean that you're not having sex at all. Sexless can look like we're only having sex once a month, but we don't have sex any other times. You can define sexless however you want and whatever feels most best for you or comfortable. Now, I'm going to be honest. If you are having sex more on a consistent basis and you're like, we're having a sexless relationship, I want you to reconsider. Maybe it's more about the conversation about how many times you want to have sex or how to meet your sexual desire and needs if your partners are different from yours. But this is how you are going to fix a sexless relationship. And it's not about having more sex. I'm going to tell you that right now. Number one, you want to work through that resentment. What is the resentment that has been coming up for you guys? You have to talk about it. Yes, it's uncomfortable as hell, but you need to actually have the conversation. What stops couples from getting to the sexless point is because they're ongoing having conversations of conflict that comes up. They feel secure and they're trusting. You can still be in a trusting and secure relationship and maybe not have the tools with your partner, which is something I've worked on in coaching with couples before, where we've had conversations around tools that, hey, this communication thing is coming up, this conflict, how do we talk about it? I know I always shut down and you talk more and then I feel shut down and then it doesn't feel good and then I just don't want to talk anymore at all. So then nothing, it's like, wait, what? This is so confusing. Who's following who at this point? The idea here is to be able to communicate as things progress, but that is not every couple. So sometimes resentments build and maybe you aren't even self-aware enough, and that's not a bad thing to realize because it's so subconscious. You're feeling so resentful about something that they did or didn't do. And as a result, you haven't been communicating with them, but you need to get real. You need to keep the focus not on sex, but what is that resentment and how has it come up for you? You can ask questions like, what feels heavy between us? Or where do you feel unseen? And then start there by having these conversations. Number two of fixing this is to be able to talk about desire openly. What do you desire? What is it that you would want from me sexually? What do you need from me sexually? What could be something fun that we haven't tried before, we used to do? What are ways that we can connect in a way that feels exciting? It feels new. And this is a great way to bring back in connection, to learn, explore, try different things, because then you're out of your same routine and your same pattern, but exploring this desire together. And the third one that is a little bit trickier in terms of fixing this is the stress, the mental health piece, addressing it head on. No pun intended, but I'm going to tell you right now that when you address what has been stopping you or what has been coming up for you, you're now focused on taking care of yourself. Sometimes it can kind of feel like you're pulling back from the relationship, but actually I always look at it as a slingshot. You're pulling back to move forward or to propel yourself forward, right? And in this instance, if you're stressed or you have a lot of anxiety, you've got to manage that first because that is the block right there. Or if your partner has a lot of stress, mental health, or anxiety that's coming up and it's preventing you guys from connecting sexually and having sex, then it's having a conversation with them. Again, communicating with them. Hey, I care about you. I notice this is coming up for you. How do you feel about it? Go in with curiosity, have that conversation. But it is important to be able to reconnect with yourself. Join a new hobby, or maybe it's more about finding some time to yourself, practicing meditation, journaling more, getting a coach or a therapist if the mental health stuff feels really heavy. All of these things can actually help combat the sexual piece so that you're connected with yourself. So then you have the desire to go and connect with somebody else. So I'm going to tell you right now that you're not broken if you're in a sexless relationship or marriage or whatever. And if you're like, oh, this is how people do it. Yeah, exactly. This is how people get into sexless relationships. It's not just all of a sudden something happened and it's just sexless. That would be probably like 0.01% of the population. I'm going to tell you this straight up. Great sex in long-term relationships are not just spontaneous. It is about being intentional. So go fucking do it. Loved this episode? Rate it 5 stars, hit that subscribe button, baby, and leave a review. Do you want to work with me? Grab my dating courses, apply for my coaching at carlaromo.com or find it all in the show notes, and give me a little follow at I am Carla Romo on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Catch you next time and stay tuned. Carla Turned On is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not a substitute for therapy. For professional support, please reach out to a licensed mental health provider.